Alright, you're struggling to lose weight and you think, I might just have a slow metabolism. Well, how do you know if your metabolism really is slow or perhaps it's something else? Well, that's what I'm going to help you figure out today. Hey, this is Colin DeWaay. If you want to master your metabolism, you want to get in the best shape of your life and do so while eating your favorite foods, then make sure you subscribe and click on that bell notification so you don't miss anything. So first of all, let's define, at least for the topic of this video, what a metabolism is, and it's basically all the chemical processes that make up the calories you burn throughout the day. So when I usually talk about metabolism, I'm typically talking about your rough maintenance calories. Anyway, if you're someone with a long history of dieting, especially a lot of yo-yo dieting, extreme dieting methods, yeah, it's absolutely possible your metabolism's slow because your body has this sort of self-defense mechanism against starvation. If you think about back in the early days, you never knew when your next meal was going to come from. If you had a shortage of energy supply, which is basically calories, and you didn't know when your next meal was going to come, and your metabolism didn't slow down to account for this, well, you would just immediately starve to death. Now, of course, at least for those of us fortunate enough this day and age, food supply isn't exactly an issue. In fact, there's plenty of food, a lot of calorie dense, easy to overconsume, very cheap foods. So while the issue of starvation isn't nearly the issue it used to be, that doesn't mean that it's not still your body's job to keep you from starving to death. So yeah, when you go on these harsh dieting methods, you typically slow your metabolism down. Eventually it gets to the point where you can't lose anymore, you feel overly restricted, you go back to your old eating habits, probably overeating even more than you used to. Now doing so with a slow metabolism, you gain weight really fast. And unfortunately, extremely fast weight gain doesn't mean extremely fast improvements in your metabolism, but I'll talk more about that at the end of this video. So anyway, to get a better idea if your metabolism really is slow and that's why you're stuck, first of all, it's not about using any kind of online calculator, any kind of Mueller equation, or anything like that. While certainly they can be useful for some people and match up, most of the time I wouldn't even bother with it because it's irrelevant to you. They don't know anything about your genetics, they don't know anything about your dieting history, and the bottom line is everyone has different genetics, so the last thing you want to do is compare to anyone else and say, well, they're eating so many more calories, why am I eating so few? I must have a slow metabolism. You don't know anything about that person, including their genetics and their activity levels. Maybe they average 12,000 steps a day and you only take 2,000. Regardless, high and low calories is relative to the individual. You can take two people, same stats, same activity levels, same everything, and one person might think 1,800 calories is tons of food, and the other person might think that's basically starvation. So what we want to do is look for more things like hormonal shifts that are going to be a better sign that your metabolism isn't in the greatest place because of previous dieting that you've done. Now, of course, you could go get your hormones tested, and if you are worried that your hormones are an issue, I would recommend doing this. Don't just assume it's the issue, go find out. So if you find that you're ravenously hungry all the time, if you're overly food focused, if everywhere you go and everything you do, it's all about food and it's always on your mind, that's a big sign that your hunger hormones are in a bad place, probably from the dieting you've done. There's other signs like if you're always cold all the time, if you find yourself overly agitated and moody at every little thing that happens, if your body's breaking down, your nails are brittle, your hair is falling out, you can't recover, you're just exhausted all the time, chances are your metabolism is not in a great place. Another thing I find is if you're in a good place metabolically speaking and you have some days of really overdoing it, sure, you see a spike on the scale temporarily, but it usually comes right back down again, or at least close to. But if you're in a bad place metabolically speaking and you overdo it, you see big spikes on the scale and it just does not want to come back down and it just hangs around. That could be another sign that your metabolism is not in a great place. You could also look back at your history and go, okay, I used to be able to lose weight at these amount of calories while I was about this body weight, and now it's just no longer working. Now keep in mind though, like if you're losing weight and you're less weight than you used to be, that means you'll consume less calories. But if you take someone like myself, for instance, who my kind of like weight maintenance is about a 10 to maybe 15 pound range. I typically just don't diet for a couple of years, and then once I start to get to the upper end of that range, then I do some quick cuts to get back down again and then recycle that process as a weight maintenance plan. I know with a long history now roughly how many calories I'm going to consume when I start my diet, probably about how low they're going to have to get to eventually get down to where I want to be. It's relatively similar each time I do it because I'm going into it from a good place metabolically metabolically speaking each time. Whereas if you're constantly dieting on and off, and now you're finding, well, I just can't lose weight the way I used to, well, that's because your body hasn't recovered. There's a very big difference between specific cut and build phases over a long period of time and yo-yo dieting. So if you have many of these symptoms, or especially if you have all of them, then chances are you're in a bad spot with your metabolism and it's time to reverse diet. However, if you're worried that you have a slow metabolism and you're not really suffering from any of these side effects, well, then chances are you're not in a bad spot with your metabolism. And I find that truly slow metabolisms are actually quite a bit more rare than a lot of people think. It usually has more to do with, let's just be honest, how accurately you're accounting for things. Because if you're just not being accurate, it's hard to get results. And there's been plenty of research that's shown that people just are not very good at accurately accounting for their intake. For instance, this study I repeat a lot because this is something I see quite a bit. They took obese people who claimed they couldn't lose weight on 1,200 calories, and when they dug deeper, they found that they were averaging about double as many calories as they said they were, as well as burning about half as many calories as they thought through activity. So maybe you're not even tracking your intake and you have no clue how much you're eating. Maybe you are tracking your intake, but you're being very loose with it. You're not measuring out any portion sizes. You're just eyeballing things and eating a lot more than you think. Maybe you're not accounting for a lot of extra bites, those extra potato chips you took, your kids' extra chicken nuggets they didn't finish, the extra fries laying around, all these different things that you just keep popping in your mouth without accounting for, that can add up to a lot of calories and keep you from losing weight. Or maybe you're being much less active than you think. Are you paying attention? Are you tracking your steps? Are you doing the same amount of exercise week by week? Or are you kind of up and down and all over? And maybe you've had changes in jobs where you used to be super active at your job. Now you're sitting in front of a computer, you're not moving a whole lot. Your everyday movements make up a big difference on top of just your regular exercise. So if you're struggling to lose weight and it doesn't look like you probably have a slow metabolism because you don't have those side effects I was talking about, what I would recommend doing is take the next 2 weeks and you're just gonna be spot on perfect. If you've watched my videos, you know I am not about the perfectionist mindset. I think perfection is the enemy. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you in the all or nothing mentality. And it's just a disaster waiting to happen. However, you can do anything for like 2 weeks, right? And if you really want to find out for sure, take the time and make sure you're accounting for everything. Nothing gets in your mouth that's not accounted for. Nothing gets in your mouth that hasn't been weighed on a food scale down to the gram. Everything is on. You're getting the same activity levels. Be perfect for 2 weeks and see what happens. And this will give you a better idea of, hey, look, I can actually see progress now, or I can't lower my calories anymore, I can't see results. Now it's time to reverse diet. Now, one thing I mentioned earlier is how faster weight gain doesn't necessarily mean faster metabolism increases. And it's very true. There's a big difference between a long time of just being out of a deficit, but not being in a large surplus versus extreme measures of ups and downs via yo-yo dieting. So if you want to find out more about the differences between yo-yo dieting and reverse dieting and what happens to your metabolism through smaller weight gain over an extended period of time versus large weight gain in a short period of time, then make sure you check out this top video and I'll give you all that detail you're looking for. Otherwise, I think you'll like this bottom video instead, and I'll see you in one of those other videos.